Hi, it's Nathan here, and today I'm talking about sections 144 through 164 of the model WHS regulations. And these sections cover electrical safety. So main thing to remember here is lots of states have their own state-specific requirements. Most states have actually left these sections in their WHS regulations, but then have additions on top. But for example, Queensland has actually pulled these sections out of the regulations, and then we have our own electrical Safety Act and electrical safety regulations and a separate regulator. So what these sections cover, early on they have some definitions of electrical equipment, electrical installations, and electrical work. Electrical equipment are basically anything electrical, wiring, anything that's electrical. So electrical wiring, electrical devices, electrical appliances, switches, plugs, that sort of stuff. Electrical installations are permanently connected electrical systems. So like, let's say inside your house, all of the permanently connected wire, and then there's some overlap. So if electrical pieces of equipment are permanently attached to the installation, they become part of the electrical installation. So electrical switch, like a light switch, that could be considered electrical equipment. If it's permanently connected to the rest of the electrical installation in your house or in a building, then it becomes part of the electrical installation. So the other one there would be electrical equipment that plugs in, like electrical appliances, like a drill. It doesn't become part of the installation when you plug it in because it is not permanently attached, so it is only ever electrical equipment. Then it talks about electrical work. Electrical work is any work on electrical installations or work on electrical equipment, with the exception of work on electrical equipment where the person is not at risk of electrocution. So for example, if you're changing filters on an air conditioner, all you're doing is popping the case open, sliding those filters out, or cleaning the filters, you're not exposed to the risk of an electric shock, so that's not technically electrical work. The rest of the regulations cover unsafe electrical equipment, so ensuring that we don't use unsafe electrical equipment, make sure that it's tagged out, so it's like electrical tag out, and then electrical testing and tagging, saying that needs to be done at regular frequencies. Everyone works off an Australian standard for that in-service testing of portable appliances, which sets out the frequency. So like 3 months in construction, 6 months in manufacturing. Then it talks about work on energized installations or work on energized electrical equipment. The first section in there, or the first main section, says that it's prohibited. You can't do it. And then it has some exceptions. So for the work on energized electrical installations, it says that's prohibited, needs to be de-energized, and then it has some steps in there for making sure it's de-energized, making sure that we verify that it's de-energized, and then making sure that we take steps to make sure it isn't inadvertently energized while we're working on it. So the main one there would be like electricians, before they go and do electrical work, they lock it out at the fuse box or at the switchboard and then test it. So verify, yes, it's not live anymore, and then having steps to make sure it isn't re-energized, so locking it out, having tags on it. And then it has some exceptions for that ban, that prohibition on energized electrical installations or equipment, saying that basically any work that has to be done while the system is energized, you can do that. So things like inspections and testing, fault shooting, research and development, where you have to actually have the device or the electrical equipment running. And then it has some rules around access and record keeping and how that's to be done, risk assessments. Then it talks about an Australian standard 3012, which is electrical installations for construction sites and demolition sites. And then it has the rules for how these electrical installations need to be set up. So if you've been on a construction site before, like construction sites need electricity, but there's no buildings there yet. There's no safe electrical installations yet to use. So you'll need temporary switchboard, temporary wiring, temporary RCD boxes. Basically the temporary electrical installations that go into a construction site or a demolition site. Then it talks about RCDs and the requirement to have RCDs and the requirement to get these tested frequently. So all buildings will have an RCD or a safety switch. And then these need to be tested periodically to make sure they remain effective. In Queensland, that's 6 monthly. So there's a lot in that for businesses or safety people. Main things to remember are only electricians can do electrical work. Make sure your electrical equipment is safe. So that's not just electrical appliances like tools and equipment, but like, you know, GPOs or power sockets, power plugs. They're not sort of hanging out of the wall. There's no exposed wiring. Having an electrical equipment tag out, like lockout tag out. If we have damaged equipment, it gets a tag on it and gets put away so no one uses it. And then electrical testing and tagging. The only other thing I would add to all that, well, demolition as well, making sure our services are isolated. The only other thing I would add to that is any companies importing equipment, be very careful. Importing equipment can save you money. The equipment can be great. The equipment can be safe, but yeah, I've seen it before where equipment comes in and this electrical equipment doesn't meet Australian standards, so then it needs a rebuild. And I've seen other equipment where, you know, it kind of seems safe and on the surface of it doesn't look that bad, but yeah, it was imported from China, and there were places where you could easily get your fingers, not during day-to-day operations, but you could get your fingers in there, and there's live 240 volt cables in there, which would electrocute you. So yeah, be careful with that sort of stuff. But that's it. Most states have their state-specific electrical act and regulations that work in addition to this. Hope that helps.